live from Nodding Along with Bernadeschi, because he ain't wrong. It's the Vocal Minority Podcast.
My neck hurts.
It's a little stiff.
Can we stop nodding now?
We did it for hours, though.
I was like a bird, you know, in the Simpsons episode where you have the bird just drinking the water and Homer is like very much enthused by this bird drinking the water. That was me the whole time, just repeating and watching that Bernadeschi video again and again, being like, yes, yes, he's right.
I had to turn it off because I figure I was just going to drain the battery on my phone. But I feel though, if I followed in your footsteps, Mike, I absolutely would have been that bird too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Vocal Minority Podcast. The podcast that is too old to go camping on the May 2-4. That's a young person's game. No, just me. Did you not go camping on the May 2-4 in high school?
No.
What?
I'm a city kid, Kristin.
Bless you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm a city kid.
Really? That was like
fuck camping.
That was rich. Oh my God! Seriously? Oh wow! I thought everybody did this.
Nope.
Okay, where I went to high
ways
school
to get out of camping. It was amazing. No. Take my brother and sister. Just go. No, I'll be fine at home. Honestly, I've never been happier when they all buggered up. I'm like, this is the best. So,
I miss it. Oh no, this was we planned this stuff. It was like an operation, like to the second, right? Like who was going in what car and what sites we had, and because one, underage, two, on the May 2-4, they actually ban alcohol from provincial parks, or at least they used to, probably because of all the teenagers, where to hide the booze so that when they search your car when you're going into the provincial park, you don't get caught and therefore kicked out. We were very, very good at it. And I don't worry about my parents hearing this because one, it was years ago. Two, they don't listen to my show. But yeah, oh my God, we used to go camp. That was like the thing.
No, man.
Okay, listeners of a certain age, I don't know, or maybe they still do it now, but
it's our demographic. Please. It's all of it.
It should be. Please let me know if you too, as a teenager especially, used to go camping on the 2-4 with all of your crazy high school friends and remember most of it, I hope. Really? You guys didn't do this? So do you just not camp at all?
No, I'll go camping, but I never did on the 2-4. I never went camping until I think the first year I went camping was like maybe 2015.
Wow.
2016.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
we weren't a camping family. That wasn't a thing in the city. It was like,
we weren't a camping family. I went camping with friends.
Yeah, no, but I did, like, even my friends weren't really big campers. Like that
same.
wasn't a thing we did. No, like if you were the May 2-4, it was like hang out in suburbia, find beer somehow, and then light fireworks off in the park. Like that was a 2-4, which in retrospect sounds really sad. But at the time was great. At the time,
it was probably brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. No, seriously, listeners, I really need to know this. And Mr. Fishhead, I know you're listening.
He does.
Or I need, please give me one of your stories or whatever in the comments. I will look forward to this.
Or a redoing of a plot of a movie that he knows we all watched. Mike, I don't think your story is any less sad than, say, I don't know, trying to smuggle booze into a campground.
What do you mean trying? Successfully done.
Doesn't matter.
3 years in a row.
It's as far as I'm concerned, they're both lateral moves, and I'm not shaming anybody. I'm just saying they're equal.
It felt like shaming. I don't know.
they're equal. It's like it's not one's better than the other. Even though I would be doing Mike's thing more than I'd be doing Kristin's thing, 100%. Because camping sucks. Anyway.
Okay, camping is the best, but whatever. All right, let's move on to the actual show. So, on this week's show, we once again talk about TFC's troubles. This has got an old, familiar, comforting, feel
to it. Like a warm blanket that hasn't been washed.
It's on fire. Yeah. Take a look at the week that was in the CamPL. Preview the Voyageurs Cup semifinal matches. Yes, and more. And now this week's panel. Thinking about playing hooky on Wednesday. Welcome to Mark Hinckley.
I don't know if it's the hooky.
How are you feeling, Mark? Cough. You don't sound well.
It's more of, can I rent a helicopter and land it safely? Now, I know that the Olympic grounds have got a lot of space, and I probably could put a helicopter down. It's whether I can get the helicopter. I think that's really the part. Also, maybe helicopter's not the most speed efficient thing because they don't really travel that fast.
Not really.
Right.
No.
Right.
But yeah, that would be lovely. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, couple away days that just sounds like the dream. But this is literally the worst time of year for me to try and get time off. So.
Yeah, I get that. Joining us as guest panelist this week, Kings of the North founder, all-around good guy. Say hello to Mike Newell.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it once again. It's when did we last talk? Like during the pandemic. I think it was like during the pandemic I was back. I was on the show.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. It has been a while. But thanks. Mark, a funny story. Obviously, most people know I'm also a big Forge FC supporter. And I was trying to get time to go to Montreal this weekend, this Wednesday to see them take on Montreal in the Voyageurs Cup semi. But like you, apparently this is also a terrible time for me to try to ask for time off from a baseball team. So I will not be going, unfortunately. But I will be watching at home.
There. No, I get it. I absolutely get it. And I'm sure they're all going to have fun and there'll be no incidences and everybody will just get along swimmingly. They'll be just hopefully Forge win.
Everyone's just riot. Looking to build memories and make friends.
Yes.
Big rainbow, circle, tree of trust. Everybody in the tree of trust.
Oh, the tree of trust. Yes.
So
you have to fall out of and pray that everyone catches you. Yeah,
exactly.
Hey, at drama camp, we fell out of a 6-foot high window and prayed that our people would catch us. So, yeah.
Like Trust falls
at drama camp. Very dramatic.
The 6-story version is way better. Way better.
Yeah.
I mean, not for the actual person falling or the people on your catch.
No, not at all. But for the optics, oh my God, amazing.
Weight and gravity make that,
That's stunt person's camp. That's a whole different camp.
It was a great camp, though.
It was such a fun camp. Let's see. Allegedly on vacation and on a different continent and everything. Duncan won't be with us this week.
He's my kit meal, so I hope he comes back.
But I think he's bringing us stuff back, so it's okay.
I hope he does.
And I think Tony is just being patriotic and loyal to the Commonwealth and refusing to work today. So no Tony this week as well.
So is he getting like time and a half because he's not working, or what's the deal with that?
I haven't quite figured that out. I don't know. Does he I guess he must still have his British passport. So maybe, I don't know. Not sure how it works. As for me, I think that whatever is wrong in the TFC dressing room could be solved by a good game of Settlers of Catan. Bernadeschi just needs to get in touch with Couvermans and he can help him set it all up and everything will be fine. It'll be fine. Just fine. I'm your host, Kristin Knowles, and now, finally, to our show. All right. Well, first up, we are going with what's been happening, and we are going to start with TFC. Let's start on whatever. It's a note. 2 matches in the last week. It's funny. The match versus the energy drinks, I didn't hate that game. They didn't lose. Clean sheet. It felt like a nice response to the previous disaster. It felt, especially, I think, it felt like one of their, not an outstanding match. Obviously, they still look scattered, especially through the midfield, considering they're missing almost all of their midfielders. But obviously, of the 2 matches, this was the better one. But I still felt that there was something to build on with that particular game. Thoughts? I know, Mike, you went to it. I didn't end up going because I had a very early train the next morning and I didn't want to play, will the TTC get me home before 11 o'clock or not? And I opted to stay home and watch it on TV.
Yeah. Went to the game. First of all, I think just thinking about it and going back through sort of the game itself, I felt like this was a perfect example of why both these teams are bottom of the Eastern Conference right now. This very much felt like a game where, look, both teams were coming into with a lot of injuries, right? A lot of
like, have we ever seen a match like that?
No, I don't think, even in MLS, and MLS can get screwy at times.
Over 20 players missing due to injury or suspension.
It's a bit nuts. It's a bit nuts. That said, look, I think TFC, in a lot of ways, the script of mediocre TFC, because we're going to get to bad TFC in this Austin game in a second, but mediocre TFC did what mediocre TFC kind of does. It controls possession. It takes a lot of shots, though not a lot of them on goal. Completes a lot of passes, but doesn't feel like it's going anywhere or getting anywhere in terms of sort of a finishing product. And look, it's been talked about a lot that it takes a long time for offenses to get going when a manager is coming in and rebuilding a team and trying to build clearly from a defensive structure out. But I don't know. This team feels like it needs 3 compasses and 5 maps to try to find goal at this point. And it's it's hard to watch, right? It's not an entertaining brand of soccer to pay for and go to the stadium and watch, or sit at home and watch, on Apple TV that either you paid or did not pay for. So from that perspective, that's kind of the sort of result I got out of this match was, again, a team that looks like in a lot of ways it's struggling to figure out what it exactly wants to be. And we'll get into that more, I guess, when we start talking about the comments after Saturday's game. But Mark, what did you think? Because that was just how I saw it from the stands.
Yeah, I kind of feel like, the whole, what was it? 3 compasses, 5 maps, 5 compasses, 3 maps. They definitely need navigation system. They really need something comprehensive to find the other side of the pitch. You're right about that. I kind of felt like it was like a battle of mediocrity. Nobody could really finish. Toronto did possess most of the ball as it appeared. I never really felt like Red Bull were going to control the game at any length that was a concern. I was expecting a last minute crapping of the bed, but I got that game wrong. It's weird because it's rudderless, but not in the way you normally say rudderless. Like, it's just there are chunks and phrases of possession where it looks like it's deliberate, but as we've seen in other games, it's just dependent on who we're playing, really. And a mediocre, hobbled by injury New York side, so are we, but they weren't as robust as they could have been. If we're missing that many players, we should have been easy prey, and we weren't that easy, I guess. It just felt like I was playing FIFA, except I have no idea how to get the ball in the box. And they did more than that, but like, it just felt like, okay, so we got the passing down and we understand where people are running to, but there was no finish to any of the movements, it felt. So,
and isn't that crazy? Because, as much as the injuries play such a role with these last run of results, and we can't discount that, right? Like, I think a lot of the fandom and a lot of the sort of frustration from the fandom right now is the fact that, yes, of course, results aren't coming in or aren't coming in as expected, but you can't not sort of point to the injuries at some point and say, like, look, come on. But at the same time, you do have your two DPs in, right? This has been the long-standing sort of fallback for the club, for a lot of fans, including myself, right? To say, look, the DPs aren't healthy. There's only one. You know, what did you expect once we get both on the pitch and they get to click and connect, and then we're going to see what this team can really be about. And sometimes you need DPs to, and this is also not fair on DPs at all. And this is why I kind of hate the DP system in MLS, because it does sort of put this over reliance on big names to grab games by the scruff of the neck and have to almost kind of not win it by themselves, but in a sense, really drive everything.
Yeah.
Is that they couldn't do that. They haven't been able to really do that. And in a lot of ways, Federico Bernardeschi has kind of, I don't want to say faded, but you know, the influence isn't the same as it was at the beginning of the season, obviously. And I also think that from Lorenzo Insigne's perspective, I just think I don't know if he's necessarily able to kind of show the best of himself when he can't connect with players that can kind of think and move at his level. You know, he's making passes that are 4 or 5 steps ahead of what's happening. And some players just right now aren't on that level. And it makes it difficult for him to be effective on this team.
Well, so talking about Bernardeschi, and this is something, and I've said this a few times on the show, and I've said it like at matches and just in general conversations. I think as his frustration, because he's clearly very passionate, and like if there's any player that you sort of believe in, it's Bernardeschi. Not that there's not other players you shouldn't believe in, because there's some very, not just talented, but there's a handful of very focused players on this club right now. Others, I'm not saying that they're not focused. I just think that there's a bit of a disconnect. But with Bernardeschi, clearly, you know, he desperately wants good things to happen. And one, because he's a competitor and he's a top tier athlete and he's used to competing at a high level. But I think all of that is culminating in, and you watch him in games, and it's frustrating to watch because it leads to mistakes and it leads to loss of possession or loss of what could have been a better play. Is he's just trying to do it all himself. And that is becoming more and more apparent as the weeks go on and as the frustrations and the poor results continue to sort of mount, is that he knows, especially when Insigne was out. And a couple weeks ago, whatever, I think Insigne actually had a very nice match and was, you know, linking up nicely. Was it with Cervania? Maybe? No, somebody else.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Right. Yeah, no, West Virginia. Yeah. So like there's been, and also with JMR, actually, there's been some nice moments, but because there's still such a disconnect, you see it in all the games, and you see it more and more. And there's a number of times where I've been like, why didn't you pass the ball? I get it. You're frustrated and you don't trust, or you just think you're the only guy that can do this right now. However, there are other people out there, and it's not from a point of selfishness. I don't think he's being selfish. I think he's honestly thinks that this is the best option is himself. And as the frustration grows, it's not himself, and he's not as sharp, and he's not what we're used to seeing from him. And I think that's becoming an issue as well. Well, let's talk about let's move on to the Austin Celtic match. Now, I was on a train coming back. I was on a Via train, and if you've ever traveled by Via, you know the Wi-Fi sucks. And if you want to stream something, that's impossible unless you have access to satellites. So, I did not see the game because I also worked yesterday, and I just did not have time today. I have watched highlights. I have read articles, and also I was quote unquote watching on Twitter. It sounded horrible, basically. Yeah. Now,
You should have watched it then. Jesus.
Yeah.
I have watched more than my fair share of horrible TFC. Thank you very much. I think I've put in my time. I think I'm gonna let you guys speak to it more clearly because did both of you watch the game?
Unfortunately, that was my Saturday night.
Okay, all right, cool. So there was the surprise of no Insigne with a lower body injury, who didn't even travel. That's
the MLSE classic lower body injury.
Like everybody has them. And like that's just it. They just hand them out like candy now. More academy kids signed to short-term contracts, several of whom played. Now, the one thing, again, I didn't see this match other than, the highlights and the via Twitter and everything. To hang on until pretty much the bitter end and keep it at 0-0 while not registering a single shot, which, oh, dear gods. And thank you, Sean Johnson. Still one of the best signings they've ever made. I am still so delighted that he is our keeper, even if perhaps he is not. But thank you, Sean Johnson. Were Austin just that bad that they couldn't find a way to score on this cobbled together team that was missing like 7 of its starters?
Yeah. Interesting. This was an interesting game in a sense that, look, Austin took, front foot right away. Like they, at the start of the game, they were on the ball and were controlling possession. I mean, they controlled the possession for the majority of the game in terms of creating dangerous chances. The fact they didn't score is somewhat of a miracle because you just felt like it was coming, right? I think we've all seen enough bad TFC to know that, that first goal that's going to break the camel's back, so to speak, is coming, right? It felt like that against Montreal the week before, and it felt like it was coming here. And then, funny enough, Austin made a couple of subs in the second half, and it actually slowed them down a bit, I thought, from an attacking perspective. And it very much, look, these are two teams that I think are not living up to the expectations that were placed on it. Like Austin had an amazing season last year, almost made MLS Cup. And I think a lot of people thought this team would kick on and sort of make the next step. And so far has sort of stumbled out of the blocks. Injuries have a lot to do with that. But I also think that, from a finishing perspective, like both Maxi Urruti and Jossie Zardes especially haven't got off to great starts for them. And that sort of showed itself again in this game. And in many ways, you're right. TFC had a valiant effort in terms of being able to just keep it at 0-0 and then made a couple of subs themselves. Bring in Hugo Mbonge, in the second
which
half.
I loved as a sub. That was great.
I thought he was I thought he brought a spark. I won't say he's fantastic, but he brought a spark. And showed a willingness to get in behind and a willingness to run at players and a willingness to maybe take some chances. That although a shot on goal was not registered, which again we can talk about and is concerning. Brought a little bit more of an opportunity for TFC to get on the ball. And then, of course, the sub of Jordan Feria, who, congratulations to him to make his first team debut, taking out Federico Bernardeschi. And obviously a lot of eyebrows were raised at that substitution. And, but I thought it was warranted. I don't think Federico was having a great night. I get it. He's your DP and he's your one DP on the field. And again, you're kind of hoping for a bit of magic, but that bit of magic was clearly not coming. It was not coming that night. And, and in a lot of ways, I don't say the team got better, but I thought that there was a little bit more clarity around exactly where everybody was kind of going to go. And you had some dangerous moments in the second half, but obviously the comedy of errors that led to the actual goal itself is something that I personally don't want to relive.
It was painful to watch.
Yeah, it was painful to watch. But I'm sure, like Mark, I'm sure you kind of have sort of similar thoughts or maybe even different thoughts than I had.
Yeah, I unfortunately I was just kind of mesmerized at how bad everything was. So seeing the effects of a substitute, I'm like super thrilled seeing Hugo get timeout, seeing Ferry get timeout. Those, like, if I hate to say it, but if I can find a bright spot, I will take that. I will absolutely take kids getting meaningful minutes. That's always important. I just watching this game was just like back to it's incredible that Austin didn't score as often as they did. Well, they bloody tried. And I'm not even talking about the numbers. Like, seeing my personal highlight of the match had to have been seeing Max Cerruti smack the post. And I wanted that to kind of go in. Mostly not so much a Schadenfreude thing as much as like, as far, I mean, I want to believe that, he's, over it, but I also want to believe that deep down inside he's not. And he would really, really, really have liked that. That being said, it was just like, I really felt like, even if not that the tactics that Toronto kind of demonstrates is really, really complex, but I think it's actually quite simplified, because if Austin, who is a middling team in the West, can solve Toronto right from the kickoff, that I think was probably the most condemning thing about the whole match, was that getting to the midfield, they get stifled so often, and they would have to find new and exciting ways to move the ball up the pitch, which usually involved people coming way out of position to foster that. At least that's kind of how I saw it. Like, I feel like I think Kay was just getting mugged all the time. I felt like
he was outnumbered. He was outnumbered in the midfield.
That's the thing.
That's a tactic thing.
Yeah, and I mean, but that's the thing. If he could be pinpointed that quickly and that effectively, and there's zero relief coming, like, counter tactics wise, it's like, well, then thanks for showing up, but now we got 88 more minutes of this. So well done, coach. It was kind of like, the big brother bullying the little brother, and just like grabbing his wrist and saying, "Don't hit yourself," and smacking him in the face with his own hand. The 1-0 scoreline is both like, Austin should be disappointed that that's all they got was one goal. Genuinely.
Yeah.
And kind of it was a fluky goal. It really was a fluky goal. Like, full credit to, I forget who headed it off the back of his skull towards the crossbar. I mean, he nearly got that. That would have been really impressive, just based on, my eyes don't go that way. But then it landed for Zardes, and who just popped it in. Like,
but can I ask a question? Do you, in those final 5 or so minutes, did you feel like a goal was coming? It felt like a goal was coming. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And maybe that's just we're kind of right now in that sort of mental space of, this team is just not able to see out games. But it really did feel like in those final 5 minutes, I know that we're trying to hang on for a 0-0 at that point, but it just felt like, this is going to come, and it's going to come from a set piece or a corner. And because, like, at that point, Austin, yes, we're just piling on pressure at that point, and TFC was dropping deeper and deeper. And I think, the three of us have all watched enough TFC throughout the years, save the golden years. But before that, remember, because for the kids out there, TFC did exist before 2015.
They were not good.
Yeah, we know what that is like. We like I sort of tweeted out after the game, is like, we know what bad TFC smells like. We just know it. We've seen enough of it. Historically, we know what it looks like. We know when that back line just keeps dropping and dropping until they're literally on the toes of the goalkeeper. When we know what that life looks like, and we know how that tends to end for this team historically. And it just, to me, it felt like, well, we're going into 90. Maybe we get out of it this time, but it feels like something's going to happen and this goal's coming. And sure enough, it did.
Yeah, I will say I didn't necessarily feel like it was about like they're gonna concede a goal. Like they've been fighting it off for the last 5 minutes, but as soon as I saw like the bodies kind of cluster in, and it just seemed like there were so many white shirts beside one another. Like, oh, this is usually when they find the part that nobody's guarding, and they find the hole and they put it in. And I was like, that's kind of what it felt like. Like as soon as that ball hit the crossbar, it's like, shit, this is going in. And
yeah, that had ricochet goal written all over it. Yeah, for sure.
So like, yeah, I think part of the reason why, Mike, I didn't necessarily feel like the last 5 minutes that they're going to collapse is because I kind of felt like that most of the second half. So I didn't really recognize a small period of time.
Well, it's funny because I think in the second half, actually, TFC played a little bit better. I thought they were a little bit better in the second half. I think some of the subs Josh Wolf made for Austin actually played a part in that. But, I thought they played slightly better in terms of they were just able to get their foot on the ball and actually get a little bit forward at times. So, there was that sort of back of the brain hope that they could steal one here and either get a moment of magic from Bernadeschi or, just again, Richie does something crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? But that's where we're at right now with this club. At this point, is that we're hoping that somebody can create a moment or magic or something crazy happens. It doesn't feel like there's a systematic way for this team to score goals right now. And that's, I think, where, again, a lot of that frustration from fan base, I think a lot of the questions around, what is this team is coming from, is that we just don't know. It just doesn't feel like there is a clear path or a clear vision on how this team wants to attack at this point, or even sort of impose themselves on the game. I'm not even talking about scoring goals. Let's just talk about how do you build from the back to impose yourself on a game. It just doesn't feel like it's there right now.
Yeah, we have like this set aside in a different section than what we're talking about section. So let's put a pin in this for 10, 15 minutes because we want to talk about Campiel a little bit because there's a lot to say here. And we want to talk about Bernadeschi's remarks after that Austin match and the very familiar feeling of those. And then just some questions about where blame is the wrong word, but where the issues lie within this club. And I do just think about something I saw on the Twitters today, as I tend to be on there a lot. Something I saw from John Molinaro, actually. And John's not an overly dramatic person. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He's not one to blow things up unless it's warranted. So the one thing I found really interesting he said in terms of everything that's happening, because everyone's having conversations about what is happening with Toronto FC and what is wrong, is because there's a lot of very understandable comparisons to 2012 or the early years or everything leading up to, say, 2015. Really 2016, because even 2015 was annoying. But 2014, 2015 was when mental shifts started happening or a money shift started happening with the club. But anyway, people are talking about 2012 because those were the truly dark, that was the very paper bags, protests, all that stuff. He said that locker room was toxic and full of infighting and not a good place to be. And he says this locker room is not like that. And that is not the problem. And I found that really interesting. Also, a little bit heartening. So just have that in your head. We're going to return to this very shortly. Sorry, dear listeners, for the cliffhanger. It's not really one. But let's talk about Campiel for a few minutes, because we haven't spent as much time on the Campiel lately. And especially with two Campiel teams coming up in the Voyageurs Cup semifinals, which we'll talk about a bit later on in the show. But we're a chunk of the way through the season now, and this last week, what I found really interesting in terms of some of the results. So what's become clear 6 games into the season is that Hamilton and Pacific are the top teams in the league. Separated by a point. Pacific scoring goals again at will. But really, for the most part, these are the 2 teams you want to be paying attention to. They've sort of currently have settled into their natural near the top position. Now, making a sudden streak into 3rd place by winning their first match of the season, but undefeated in 6, because draws are us. Pony Boys finally won a match against Ottawa, which is really not that difficult. But with Hamilton and Pacific this weekend, what was interesting, and not good for either team really, was they both drew. And Forge drew at home, which was surprising, especially against their opponent, VFC. Pacific drew on the road, but they drew against Winnipeg. And while Winnipeg has been acquitting themselves okay, there's still, I'm sorry, Winnipeg fans, Red River Rising people, don't come for me. I know some of you. I love you.
No, go at her. It's fine.
100%.
Nikki would never. She loves me, and she might be the only one. The rest of them might hate me. Again, this is, yes, whatever. It's always harder to play on the road in any sport. This is a game you would expect Pacific to win. So I just found that interesting. Now, again, are they resting? Are they, Mark, you guys were both at the Hamilton match. And Mark, I was messaging you during the game because I was visiting my parents. We weren't watching. And I was like, what is happening? Why? How are they not winning this? And I was sincere. I wasn't trolling. I was very confused by the lack of the winning. And you told me it was a B team. And then my brain went, a day later, oh, wait a second. Voyageurs Cup match coming up.
Yeah.
So did both coaches just, early in the season, we're doing relatively well. Let's rest some players.
Yeah. I mean, that lineup basically, I don't know. I was going to say it stank of it, but I'm like, Forge has got enough bench depth that sometimes the B team doesn't look like a B team.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, no disrespect to Chris Kalongo, but he's the backup keeper and he got the start. And
yeah, that was weird.
I'm assuming I can't remember if Henry was on the bench or not, but if he's starting, which I don't even know if I can name the other keepers who've ever had starting minutes at Forge in the 5 years. But
Quillen Roberts.
Did he get one game? That's
yes.
Impossible. No way.
I was at that game. Thank you very much. I had pictures of Quillen Roberts in net on my phone.
So you mean I actually have a TFC signed pennant of a player who actually played now? That's amazing.
Yes.
Mike,
you're still not bitter about that, though. It's lovely. It's lovely how accepting you are of that moment.
Mike, do you remember the donate $5?
Yes, I remember.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Quillen Roberts.
You were thrilled.
I got Quillen Roberts. 0 minutes. TFC Quillen Roberts. Anyway,
I got Gilberto.
Yeah.
What did I get? This would have been 2014, right?
Sounds right.
2014. Yeah. Who did I get? I probably got Mark Bloom or something. I think I got Mark Bloom.
Oh, Mark Bloom.
Yeah.
Oh, see, a guy who played minutes. Anyway, my point. So Forge really put out the B team, and like I said, a Forge B team does very much look like a Forge A team, except they were playing like a B team. They had a lot of the possession. It looked okay, but it wasn't. God, I'm gonna sound like a snobby dick. They weren't as crisp as they usually are. It wasn't as like. Don't get me wrong. Like I know what supporting a bad football club looks like. We just did like 20, 30, 40 minutes on it.
Cough.
Yeah. So like you have like there's levels of expectation. When they play really good after they've been bad, you're like, holy shit. And when they play kind of mediocre after they've been playing really good, it's kind of like, holy shit. So this was kind of one of those moments. And yeah, it was not the like crisp was really the word. Like they had some attacking moments. They had some nice little forward movements on the wing, a little bit of give and go, but the give and goes didn't work out all the time. And it was made quite apparent that they really weren't working until they made the 3 substitutions at one shot, about 60 minutes into the match, when they did a give and go, and it looked, oh, that's how it's supposed to look. Hey, everybody, watch. This is what we were trying to do for the first hour. Yeah, it was. I kind of felt like Vancouver could have stolen this match, very much so. It wasn't so much that Hamilton was particularly mediocre. It's just the finishing wasn't really there. And they had a couple of counterattacks. A lot of them got snuffed, but some of them didn't. And it was whether they were trying to shoot the ball into Cannon Street or what have you. They didn't quite, hit the mark. But Mike, I know you. I believe you mentioned Jordan Hamilton earlier.
Yeah, look, I think first of all, I think their credit needs to actually go to Vancouver FC. I thought, look, they're coming off a game where they got thumped 5-0 at home. And needed a response, and their manager Goppy basically was, after the game with Christian Jack, was very blunt and very honest about their intentions. They came to set up to be defensively solid, and they definitely did that. Like they cut down and closed down a lot of spaces that Forge liked to operate in. I thought they did a really good job of marshaling David Chouanier, who normally is a nightmare on the right-hand side to deal with as a winger. And I thought they kept him under wraps. I thought the big thing was they really kept Wubens Passius under wraps on the left-hand side. And they kind of played him as a winger in the 4-3-3 with Jordan Hamilton up top. And look, there's a lot of debate right now in Forge land on whether who should start up top. Should it be Hamilton? Should it be Passius? I am, and look, don't get me wrong. I love Jordan, in a lot of ways. I do think Boobens is better as a number 9, as somebody up top, not necessarily as a winger. Mm-hmm. I think you miss a bit of that ability to, be dynamic or run in behind if he has to, hold the ball up when he's strong enough and big enough to hold the ball up, to bring players in. And of course, in the box itself, right now, to me, he's the better finisher. But, I think in a lot of ways, Forge created a lot of half chances. But never really, one great chance came to Jordan Hamilton, I think, in, late second half, that probably he'll want back. One that he probably, if he's in training and you ask him to, probably puts that top corner, no problem. Mm-hmm. But he skied it, and put it onto Beechwood. But, from that perspective, I still think you got to give credit to Vancouver. I thought that they, of many teams that come to Forge, come to Tim Hortons Field, a lot of them kind of almost mentally beat themselves before they get onto the pitch. Mm-hmm. We can see because that. If look, Mark, you said earlier that you were going to sound like a smarmy dick. Well, when you win 3 of 4 Premier League titles, you get to kind of be a smarmy dick about some things, right? And in a lot of ways, when Forge step on the pitch, no matter who tends to line up, you tend to get a good result. And this is the first time Forge have ever drawn 0-0 at home, ever, since 2019, like in the history of the league. So,
are you standing in for Martin Bailey today?
Yeah, a little bit. Thanks, Martin, for that. But I think from that perspective,
that's impressive, though. Huh?
Yeah, it is impressive. You got to put the hand out. I thought Gail Sandoval for Vancouver was fantastic, and also give some love to Elliot Simmons and Sean Hundle as well, former TFC Academy player Sean Hundle, who I thought kind of got a raw deal. But,
he's having a good season.
He is having having a great season. I think he's finding a really good spot for himself in Vancouver, which is
definitely
really, really important for him, I think, in his development. I hope he can sort of either stick around there if that's where he wants to stay, or, find a team that's really going to give him an opportunity and let him play to his strengths. Because, he is a really good number 9. He is a really good number 9, especially in this league. So yeah, I think Mark summed it up really well. Once the 3 substitutes came on for Forge, when Becker, Taron Campbell, who I thought had a really good substitute appearance, and Borges came on, you saw what Forge is normally going to look like 9 times out of 10 when they come onto the pitch. But in the end of the day, I think that 0-0 result is deserved. On both ends, and of course, from a Forge perspective, you're going to look at that and sort of scratch your head, and you don't draw a lot at home, so you take the point and you run it. And I think for Vancouver, I think that's an important building block for them and an important way to bounce back, after getting thrashed by Ottawa at home.
I will just to pile on with what you said, Mike. Full marks to Vancouver's defense really did do an outstanding job. Not as much as I watch that game very much through the lens of a Forge supporter. Vancouver, it wasn't like Hamilton. This was Hamilton's game to take, and they blew it. Vancouver did their part. They like you said, they did frustrate the living hell out of Choinière, and Woobens. They kept him so far on the wing, he was still kind of effective putting the ball into the box, but that's not his primary strength as far as his scoring record shows. So yeah, Vancouver came with a plan, and they did hold their own. And even when those substitutes came in, yes, Hamilton looked much better, but when it's all said and done, that's Vancouver's structure and hard work to keep composure in the back to not let the point slip away. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Last thing I'll sort of say on this game, Menjikar James, what a signing.
Oh my God. Yes.
Just
have all the players, you guys.
Yeah. What a signing. Because he's been phenomenal since he's put on a Forge shirt. No, look, it's a former national team player. You expect quality from him. But he has been absolutely fantastic since he's come forward. In many ways, won Forge a point against Pacific. And it's the point that is essentially, or the 3 points, I should say, that is keeping them top of the league right now. Yep. And in a lot of ways, I think he's, the perfect player to slot in after you lose a Daniel Kristin, right? Because normally for a CPL team, that is a monumental loss. That is a monumental shifts the way that you look at your season loss. And you're able to get Menjikar James in, speaks to obviously sort of the power of Forge in a lot of ways. Again, smarmy dick comment, but it's very much true. And also, obviously credit to the player who's come in. And in a lot of ways, some people I heard question whether or not he'd hang his head by coming to Canadian Premier League and leaving Europe. Has not done so in any which way. And in fact, in many ways has improved that defense in some ways. And also shout out to Kwesi Poku, who I just think is a player that should be on his way to Europe by the end of this season, because he was fantastic again on Friday night.
Agreed. Menjikar James, the man has a magnet in his boots that is strictly tuned to the ball. It's incredible how he just vacuums that thing up and just no problem. He makes it look so easy, and I know it's not, but he makes it look so effortless. It is quite the coup that I got him. And Kristin, I don't know why you're bitter. We are all Forge fans here. All of us.
I am a fan of some Forge players.
That's the same thing. Mike, what did I say? What did she say? Were they the same?
Same.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just
quietly in your head, Kristin, you are singing "We Are the Forge," the mighty Forge.
Just because I know far too many of your stupid chants, it doesn't matter. Quiet.
You love them.
The other game I want to mention, the Valor Pacific one, a bit weird. Good on Winnipeg for whatever it is they're trying to do, which hopefully reflects in raising their profile a bit in their community, because that's been an issue. And a lot of that's coming from team marketing and the fact that they play in just a very strange place. But anyway, we can get into that another day. But why you guys, York United, found their scoring boots finally.
Yeah.
The team that was expected to score goals has taken 6 games.
Far too long.
To double their up for the first 5 games, they'd scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
3. And then on the weekend, they went to Halifax and destroyed the Wanderers 3-0 and looked like world beaters doing it.
I was going to ask, can I ask, is that more that they found their scoring boots, or is that they ended up playing the Wanderers?
You know, that's a very fair question.
I'm kind of
hoping it's a little of both,
yeah,
because I haven't seen that kind of movement and attacking intent from them for most of this season.
That's fair.
And again, going into this season, I had York, you know,
same
up in with the top tier of the teams, just based on how they ended last season and the momentum they were building, and whatever the off the pitch stuff is going on with them, team ownership, blah, 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 all that stuff, whether or not they're moving to Woodbine next season, all those things. They still have a pretty talented team.
They have a very talented team.
Stupidly talented.
Including some of the best ball handlers and attacking players in the league.
If they ever get, like, if they ever really hit stride, like where they just are all on the same page, like this is like, I felt like this last year too, and they just seem to have, you know, maintained, if not got a little bit better. If they can find that groove, which I know it's there, because if you watch the highlight packs, especially in that Halifax game, they look like New York Cosmos, both the colors too, and like just the skill, like they have it. It's the inconsistency of that skill. And if they ever hit that stride where they can just do this night in, night out, the league is theirs. It's not even like they'll have competitive games against, you know, some of the legacy great teams such as Forge, for example. But I mean, they will fuck them up.
Yeah,
they are so good.
Yeah, you see, they got a lot of talent, but one, you're right, they lack consistency. And I think two, there's a difference between having a lot of talent and knowing how to win. True. Those are two very, very different things. And
what are you trying to say about Martin Nash? I mean, what?
Well, look, Martin Nash is in his second season as head coach. And he's had a lot of turnover in that roster, right? Like in a lot of ways. And it's hard to sort of implement ideas when your roster's changing all the time. Or you're bringing in a lot of young players. Like, this is probably one of the youngest teams in the league in terms of overall
there's some
age,
serious
right?
babies on that team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you know, there's tiers already in year 5 of the Canadian Premier League where, you know, you have your Forge Pacific and Cavalry are kind of your always solid, should be playoff contenders every single season. You know, the next level should be your Atletico Ottawas, you know, your Valor and your Yorks, I think. And then, you know, Vancouver and Halifax kind of bring up the third tier. That's in my opinion. And I know a lot of Atletico Ottawa fans are always going to have a go at me for not putting them in that top tier. But, you know, give me a second season of that. And then maybe you're in there. But right now, Cavalry, Pacific, and Forge are the 3 teams that consistently are in that mix. Right. And I think that York has not quite figured out what that step is. And part of that, again, is just down to, I don't think, and it's not in the club's philosophy in terms of how Angus McNabb, you know, if you ever listen to him talk about player recruitment and how that is sort of their philosophy of getting players and being able to move them on. You're not going to be a Forge where you keep the same group of players year after year after, or core players year after year after year. Pacific kind of the same, Cavalry to a lesser extent, but still have some players that have some continuity. Those teams that can do that win in this league, generally speaking. And those who do not, or do not have that philosophy, tend to fluctuate year over year.
That's fair. Yeah. That's 100% fair.
And it has been, and the other thing with York United is, they've had a literal identity crisis, right? With the branding of the team, with who's running the team. I sing Agnes McNabb's praises a lot on our show, just in terms of getting the marketing and the social media better, like the vast improvement once he came on board of the comms team for York United was startling. I was like, oh, is everyone else paying attention to this guy? Like I don't praise social media or comms teams very much, just because I find most of them really annoying. And I get it's a thankless job for the most part, but these guys do a great job. Now, if they just had, a consistent product or a consistent identity, and that's a big problem with York United. They went all in on this York Region 9 whatever thing that hasn't been working for them. And, this move, potentially still, who knows, move to Woodbine, I think was going to be a really good thing, because it was going to, now it's still far out of the city center, but it was going to get them closer and was going to make them slightly more accessible. Plus, you might get people who are there, who are spending the day at Woodbine for various forms of entertainment and such, who could stumble into a game and who could give them a higher profile. So that's a whole other thing. But I do think that's been part of their problem, is this whole ongoing off and on the pitch identity crisis. It's very hard to sort of fight for something when the badge on your shirt could change again. There's just this a little bit of nebulousness to that squad. And it was built on a bit of a kind of a stretch in terms of what the club identity was supposed to be. So out of all the teams in CanPL, with whatever questionable marketing and overarching themes to their team, of which is most of them, this one, I think this particular one has affected the play on the pitch more than any of the other teams who've had to sort of who've had to take a sort of a nebulous concept, Winnipeg for one, and really kind of like hone in on that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, to a certain extent. Like look, I was at the York 9 launch. I went to that.
Nice.
And I went to their jersey launch, and I always thought it would be difficult. They were very nice jerseys.
Wow,
they do make the nicest kits in the league. Though the Vancouver, the red and black is
Vancouver wins consistently, but York is always right up there.
Yeah, Vancouver, the red and black is the alternate kit, right? That's the alternate,
which is a shame because it's glorious.
Because it's glorious. It is very, very nice. I actually probably going to get one. I've always thought it was going to be difficult for that team to really grab a foothold. There's just so much noise. Just in this whole GTA area, there's so much noise in terms of.
Wait till the women's team gets here.
Right. Like just in terms of just trying to grab people's attention and really get them focused. And when you add on top of that, Kristin, right, like your point about not having, trying to root yourself into identity that you just aren't able to really, build that and identify that and make that tangible for people. You're going to, I think you may struggle, and we'll see how this proposed move to Woodbine goes. I honestly have no idea. It could be great. It could be awesome. And people really in that neighborhood, out in Rexdale, really
bring something spectacular to that area.
Maybe they do. My feeling, based on just knowing the area, is that it's going to still be a bit of a struggle, just because transportation there is not great. Yeah. Just the idea of having a team that's transplanted from another side of the city at York University coming over here, is that going to really sort of attract people? I don't know. But I do agree that it's affected sort of their on-field product as well. But it's funny you mentioned that in terms of this nebulous idea of trying to build identity and it coming onto the pitch and then transferring it to their opponents this weekend of HFX Wanderers, who have a clear identity. Like, you clearly know what HFX is about. If you've been to the Wanderers grounds, had the privilege of going twice, this is Halifax. Everything about the club screams the city and screams the identity of that city. And they just haven't been able to get it right either. Right. They're sitting dead last in the table, or tied for last in the table. And look, I actually think they have done positive things. Patrice Glacier has gone there and done really well, and really started to bring a more progressive playing identity to the team. Yeah. But there are going to be hiccups along the way. And this game was definitely one of them, because, as you mentioned, York tore them apart in a lot of different ways. And I give a moment for, we were talking about TFC fan base sort of feeling it right now. Give a thought for Wanderers fans who are going in numbers every week, clearly the highest attendance in the league, and they just aren't getting the product that support kind of deserves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've often concerned, like, because, I obviously want to see this succeed. And I often wonder if, like, when a breaking point is for a successful in the stands club, like, where's that breaking point where they know they become less successful in the stands? And I mean, Halifax getting to the final of the bubble was nice, but it's also kind of unfortunate because their supporters couldn't get to see them in person to revel in that, to be a part of that. So yeah, I agree. I don't, not that any club deserves to be last or dead last or out of the playoffs all the time, but Halifax, I would like to see them get to a final and win it, possibly at the expense of Pacific would be really nice too. That one's for Kristin. So
thanks.
Yeah, I hope. It always seems like they're constantly like turning over their players in Halifax for one reason or another. And I don't know. It always seems like maybe they're going to get it right and they'll show some promise early and then it just fizzles, or they have like a really good, like 1 or 2 or 3 game run. Can't have a 1 game run. Never mind. A 2 or 3 game run. And then it just, okay, that just didn't materialize.
Yeah.
Anything full, like a regular consistency.
Yeah, they have a hard time keeping players, right? They have a hard time attracting players to come out east. And the biggest thing for them is goal scoring, right? They still haven't got Jal Morelli back. Akeem Garcia, for a shining moment in the 2020 tournament, looked like he could be an answer, and it just didn't really pan out in a consistent way. So that has always been sort of the Wanderers' problem, is they just don't have somebody who can consistently put the ball in the net and sort of win them games that way. There's obviously that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. There's a lot of different things and nuances to the roster build, but it looks like they may get, another potential star, Massimo Ferran. I thought he's been really great so far at the start of this season, from League One Ontario, from Vaughan Azzurri, that Patrice brought with him from the League One Ontario championship team. Again, will he turn into somebody who can be a real big match winner for the Wanderers? We'll see. But that's a team that, if they can get it right, if they can get it right, you can kind of see the same sort of effect that Atletico Ottawa had last year, right? You get it right. You start getting the community aspect right in the way that you build the club, and you really start to take off in terms of sort of that community support. Because I think the league would be better, and I think the league will be better, if the Wanderers are consistent contenders.
Absolutely.
Agreed. Yeah, we want it, like, especially with a league that has, still only has this few teams, right? Like, you want it to be competitive top to bottom, and also now I think Halifax is pretty well supported, and they have that delightful ground. I don't feel like they're really in any danger due to underperforming. However, you never want to think that, and you never want to hang your hat on that. So no, the more competitive every team in this league can be, the better for all concerned, for all the reasons, for profile, for money, for player desire to go there, for player movement, all of the things. And for the fan bases, of course, right? Like there's all the reasons for every team to be, but you make the other teams better, you make the league better. People become more interested in the league. It's more likely that expansion happens faster. Not that we want MLS style expansion. CanPL, please remember that. You won't, but you could try. No, 100%. And there's still lots of games left in the season to see how stuff shuffles out and everything. But it's been an interesting start to the season, I think, for the CanPL. Yeah. Well, all right. Let's move on from that, and let's get into, the things we're talking about. And it's all TFC this time, because we're just going to talk about, the ongoing issues. So after the match in Austin on the weekend, Bernardeschi, who was subbed out for one thing, subbed out fairly early for another thing. I've seen Bob's comments on that, and having seen, again, highlights from that match as well as just other things. I'm not broken up over that kind of sub. Again, he's played a lot. He's had a lot asked of him, and if he wasn't 100%, and even if he was 100%, sometimes you just sit your best players down and give them a break. Like it just happens. So I'm not annoyed with that at all. But similar to a Danny Kuverman's moment 11 years ago. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, why are you listening to this show?
How are you listening to this show?
Yeah,
exactly. we were pretty much born of that.
That's when we became a real team.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that too, right? That's true. That really solidified everything, including the fan base, the trauma bonding.
Yeah,
you just can't beat it.
Nope.
So Kuverman's infamous "we're the worst team in the world" press conference with just that despondent, poleaxed look on his face. Seeing Bernardeschi after the Austin match had a similar feeling. Just the look on his face. And, again, passionate guy. He clearly cares, which is great. You want that. I've seen it from multiple interviews. One of my favorite things right now is every Richie Larea interview is peppered with swear words. I love it. Go, Richie. Do it. Don't hold back.
Get him, Richie.
Don't be polite for the social media people. Who cares? Anyway, so he had a lot to say about how the team plays. And talking about the tactics, saying that they're playing without an idea, without a plan. We don't know how we don't know how to pass the ball was one of the most damning things we said. And he said, this is a real problem because we don't train that. Are you fucking kidding me?
Uh-huh.
So it's a lot of people are saying this was absolutely an indictment of Bob Bradley and that he was like squarely trashing the coaching staff. Other people are saying, no, he's not saying that. I don't know that it feels pretty damning. I think the truth is somewhere a little bit in the middle. One of the reasons is, and someone said this, they're like, I can't believe that TFC have this up on their site. And I was like, well, why wouldn't they? It's everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't avoid that it happened.
Mm-hmm.
27 different soccer journalists posted his comments word for word in screenshots seconds after they happened, basically. Like I literally just sat there on the train scrolling through my phone because my train was late getting in, just reading it over and over and over and over again. So I think maybe TFC of the past might not have kept it up or posted a link to it, just let people read it from other transcripts. I think it's good that they do, that they keep that there, that they are honest, I guess is maybe the best word I'm saying, that there are issues. You know, it's very clear to anyone who watches, anyone that has eyes, but let's be honest about this. There are issues, and your best player, and he is our best player right now, closely followed by Richie Larea, and followed by Sean Johnson, and then 3 or 4 other people, and then a bunch of kids who nobody should be trashing every single fucking match. And sorry, I will let you guys talk, but this is something that I've become increasingly frustrated about.
Go for it.
And I get that the fan base is frustrated. I understand. I have been with you this whole time too. This has been my life for 16. How many years have we been doing this?
Yeah,
16 years, 17 years, a long fucking time. And while again, I am not laying all the blame for this season on injuries. Have you ever, seriously, have you ever seen this consistently, this long, for a team to be missing this many of its players and this many of its top players, where you cannot consistently know who you're going to field match to match? And then you are asking kids from the academy team, some of who are very talented and have futures 100%, or young players that have sat on the bench or sat near the bench that haven't made the 18, to suddenly be world beaters. It's not that they're not talented. It's not that they can't learn new skills and can't up their game, but you don't automatically become someone who can hang with, Federico Bernardeschi or Lauren Signe or CJ Sapong. I'm going to throw that out there too. As a talented man, as a veteran, they don't just suddenly, their skill level doesn't just suddenly go up 3 sections. This isn't a fucking video game. You can't just go buy a magic potion and suddenly your health and your strength and your agility and your acuity go up 7 points. That's not potion. How this works.
As far as video games, that's an excellent potion. I don't know what games you're playing, but that's overpowered.
Hogwarts Legacy.
Maybe. I haven't properly gamed in years, but anyway. I think we can.
But I just get very frustrated when everyone's like, oh, this team isn't good enough. This is just they don't know what they're doing. Why are these guys playing? Who the fuck else do you want to play? Who else is going to play? Are you going to play? You think you're good enough? You go talk to Bob Bradley. You go talk to Bill Manning. Maybe they'll let you play beer league fucking keeper. It just, whatever is wrong with this team, and obviously there are things wrong with this team. Of course there are. And they're not all injury related. There is a lack of vision in the identity. But again, it's also hard to stamp your identity on a team when you don't know who your players are. most of the time right now. I would really like people to step back and fucking think about what it is you actually want. Yes, we all want a competitive and winning side. Of course we do. We pay a lot of money for our tickets. We pay a lot of money to go down to BMO Field. We do this week in, week out. We sacrifice our time. We sacrifice our passion, our anxiety, our patience, our love for the sport, all of those things. But Jesus fucking Christ, it's just sport. Okay? And I mean that as someone who dedicated huge swaths of her life to this sport, both for the national teams and for my home side. Like, leave these kids alone, man. Like, look at them for who they are. Look at the potential. What was it? A few games back. God, JMR had a great game. Mac had a great game. The tall kid, the tall person, Mabika?
Tall kid. Let's just go with the tall kid.
Yeah, Mabika.
Like, there was 3 or 4 very strong performances, and I shouted them out on Twitter, and I got like the stupidest replies. Like, just literally people who can't possibly be watching the game or understand how the game is played.
You're asking for nuance on Twitter, Kristin.
I wasn't asking for anything. Well, that's true. I wasn't expecting any replies at all, but I was just like, and like, I'm looking at player ratings from like 3, 4, 5 different soccer sites, all of them who have these guys as the top players in the match. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm not insane. Like, I've done this for a long time. I may not be the best at analytics. I'm not as sharp at this as I used to be, but Jesus Christ, I know a strong performance when I see it. I know when I see someone doing good work off the ball and with the ball. Like, fuck y'all. So I see these people calling for like, oh, JMR should never sit on the pitch. Are you on crack? He should start. Well, we have all these injuries. He should always be playing. If Cervania's hurt, JMR should always start. Sorry, this turned into a much longer rant than I expected it to.
Oh, good. No,
I don't know,
but it's good to get it out. It's good to talk about it.
Honestly, Ranty Kristin's a pretty awesome Kristin, isn't it?
Maybe I'm just at a point where I don't expect or need everything to be burned to the ground every 5 seconds. And this is coming from someone who has called for this team to be blown up for the last 4 seasons.
Yeah.
And it's taken them too long to do it. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I think the world should burn or that a bunch of these players don't deserve time and space. And that my expectation for most of the squad right now is to not get a lower body injury, don't get a red card, and not look like just don't look like absolute crap. If you can avoid looking like a deer in the headlights on the pitch for at least 3 or 4 of these guys right now, I'm good.
Well, see, and I think that's part of, I think a lot of people's frustration, the ones that really sort of watch this team and fully understand sort of the nuances of what's going on here. No, it's not really the players, right? Like, there's talent on this team. Yes, there's a lot of injuries, but even when you get all those injuries back, that's a talented team. That starting 11 that we saw in DC on opening day, obviously, you're not looking for Lorenzo Insigne to get hurt in 34 minutes. But that team could, if it's structured the right way and is pointing in the right direction, should be
top quarter of this league. Yeah.
100%. No, I don't think anybody is doubting there's talent on this team. There is talent all over this team, both veteran and young player. To me, and this is where I may counter a little bit, Kristin, with you, is just that I think there is a question around leadership and it's the idea of what is this team? What is the identity of this team? I know that word gets used a lot. It gets thrown around a lot.
It's not a bad word, though.
It's not a bad word.
I get it. We talk about it.
Exactly. And I think that right now, between fan base, between maybe even some of the players, like, we just don't know what that is right now. I I think why people are pining for, like, say, Greg Vanney to return, which, by the way, I will point out is not a good idea at the moment because LA Galaxy are dead last in MLS
They're
right
worse
now.
than Toronto.
They're worse than Toronto right now.
They're worse than Toronto, which I pointed
Right.
out a couple weeks ago, but joked about a prisoner swap of coaches because
well, right. Like, from that perspective, I would hold my horses on that. But I think the issue here is that we just don't know what, either tactically or just big picture TFC, what is this club? It's gone from, look, team that couldn't figure out how to tie its left shoelace in the early years to all of a sudden starting to realize, hey, maybe we spend some money, maybe we win. Then it spends money, then it starts to win. Then it's kind of trying to repeat the same formula over and over again.
Exactly.
And you realize that the league caught up and past you in that time while you were trying to replicate the same thing that worked from 2015, 16, right? And I think that's where this club, in terms of how it starts to think of itself and build its roster, is stuck. It's stuck trying to still build a team that Tim Bezbatchenko started to build in 2014 when he got here, midway through 2014 when he got here, right? Yeah. Well, after the sacking of Ryan Nelson. It's still trying to think that, hey, if we go out and we spend on 2 DPs and we blow most of the budget on these guys, and then we're kind of fill here and there, we should be competitive. That's not how MLS works anymore. It just doesn't work like that. Even LAFC, who spend money, right, mainly on transfer fees for younger players, they still don't. They don't quite build a squad that way, right? Like you still build it around using your allocation dollars to build a strong core of talent from, the first player in your team sheet all the way down to the last sort of senior roster spot on the squad, so that when you do run into injuries, right, you've got a mix of players that are going to be able to come in and do a job. And this is not to jump on the young players, because how can you ask some of these young players to come in and all of a sudden, yes, please do this exact same thing that Jonathan Osorio does and has been doing for a decade really well at this club? How are you going to
instantly be at that level?
Exactly.
Right
How are you asking a Hugo Mbonge to come in and be, the savior number 9 when you're trying to compare that guy to Sebastian Giovinco or Josie Altidore? It's impossible. Those guys they won almost everything, in an 18-month span, and everybody fell in love with those guys. And the problem is that for a lot of fans, they just have not been able to separate that time and say, that was a great moment in club history. We kind of have to put it behind us now and start thinking about, what is the next version of Toronto FC and this MLS today look like? And I don't think we really have a solid answer on that.
No, I agree. So then that leads me to, I guess, 3 questions. Only 3, she says. And two of them are pretty much the same question, just different people. One is, and I think trying to answer it through this discussion, are all the criticisms fair? Obviously not, but a lot of them, yes. But so let me shift that a little bit to, what about Bob? Like, what has happened to Bob Bradley? Because, well, I wasn't like jumping off the roof excited when he got signed. There's a lot of Bradleys involved with this club, and like there's 3 of them, possibly more behind the scenes that we don't even know about. Who knows? He's been asked to do a lot. He's the GM and the coach, which honestly is probably a bad thing. But his reputation in MLS, I'm not talking about his reputation anywhere else, I'm talking about his reputation in MLS, was pretty strong. We all saw what we did with LAFC. That was pretty fucking exciting. Mark Anthony Kaye played some of his best football under Bob Bradley. Bob seemed to nurture, develop, and promote young players while at LAFC and previously in his career as well. Again, something as a TFC fan who loves the academy, thank you, Aaron Winter, and wants that to be a thing. For those reasons, I was pretty excited about all of this. So what has happened? And then Do you think Bob Bradley needs to leave now or at the end of the season? I'm more of an end of the season kind of gal, because unless they have a detailed point for point plan to magically fix this, which won't happen, bringing in a new coach now, I feel is a waste of time and effort. That's just me. But also, similar vein, does Bill Manning need to go?
Mr.
Those are my
you
questions.
You want to take that on first?
Thanks, Mike.
Because
So as Mike was saying to me earlier, absolutely. No, I'm kidding. Man, I realized, like, because of the nature of how the team was built and the money that they splashed out for these players, this is on him as much as it is Coach Bob. And at the same time, too, I feel like the pieces are definitely there. And it's just, I don't know if it's a tactics thing. I don't think it's a motivation thing. I don't, if there's anything, I feel like the players aren't sold on this because they've never actually seen it work. And if I had to pick, who stays and goes, I don't know why somebody would leave me with that kind of responsibility. I can't put it all on. I can't put it all on Bill, because they brought in quality like this. These are known characters of quality who can deliver good performances, whether it's at their previous clubs, whether it's on national teams. We know it exists. So why the fuck hasn't it combined? Why hasn't all the ingredients blended in with one another? And I feel like I have to look at the chef rather than the guy who owns the restaurant. I know I've mentioned this in length about, how much leeway does Coach Bob have, and I still think he has a lot, because he can still say, well, this isn't clearly the final product because we have an ungodly amount of injuries, and it is a lot. Like, that's like, nobody's denying how many injuries that actually is. It's practically a first team's worth. So, because I don't know. The other thing too is, and I'm just going to say this, I don't know where it becomes and when it becomes a Bill's issue. Like, when Bill has to be the fall guy for it.
Right.
I feel like I think what it is when does it go too far where Bill doesn't pull the trigger to get rid of Bob? And then it's like, okay, now you both go. Because Bill's seen success. So when you have success, you can you give yourself that leeway too. And this has clearly been a rebuild. It's a little late starting, but it's still it's rebuilding. It's rebuilding, not rebuilt.
Yeah. So this is a tough one.
Just do it. Just go.
Yeah, I gave no answer. I'm sorry, Mike. I gave no real answer.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Because there is no great answer to this, right? Like, everybody's, a lot of people are looking around the Bradley out train. I just say, like, if you're going to fire him, who are you replacing him with? And nobody has a good answer for that.
Nagelman's isn't coming here, people.
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Everybody with everybody's like, don't worry, Allegri's going to leave Juventus and it's going to be all right. Like, that's not happening. Look, I think there's a couple of things to this. One, yes, I think, to a certain extent, like you had to rip down, or Bob had to come in and rip down an entire already built, already well-established roster. and reset it and reset the not just the players, but the entire culture, right? The entire culture in that dressing room had to be reset. You know, a lot of things happened with Soteldo and with Pozuelo and with a few other players at the time that needed to be dealt with, and they were dealt with. But I think also from a squad building point of view, you know, some of this has to go on Bill to a certain extent. Look, those DPs weren't signed by Bob Bradley, right? They were signed by Bill. And whether they were signed with Bob knowing about them ahead of time, because, you know, look, he was still under contract at LAFC when those negotiations were taking place for the most part, at least for Insigne. He didn't have an opportunity to say like, hey, that's my guy. Now, granted, I don't think he's going to take this job, get Lorenzo Insigne and say, yeah, not my guy. Don't like it. Obviously, no, he's not going to do that. He's going to try to work with a world-class footballer.
Exactly.
Right. But I think there's equal quote unquote blame to spread around, you know, at a certain point when the team goes out onto the pitch and just looks bereft of ideas. Right. I think that lies on the manager at some point. But I also think that from a roster build perspective, look, this team is not built right now to peak next season. That's not the plan here. The plan is to win now. That's what TFC is built to be. The plan is to win now. So it has to be judged, and the team has to be judged on that. On sort of that's the plan, or, you know, that's at least the loose ideas. Like, this team is supposed to be competitive right now, and it just simply isn't. Like, I know, and it's not like TFC are way out of.
No, that's the hilarious thing about MLS and the Eastern Conference. Actually, although, you know what, the Western Conference isn't much better. There's like 3 or 4 good teams this year. Everyone else is either mediocre or shit.
Exactly.
It's hilarious, actually.
Exactly.
How's that expansion going for you there, guys? How's that working? How's that working, Don?
Yeah.
Is that good?
Well, hey, man, the owners got money in their pockets, so they're happy. But anyway. Right, like they're not that far out of, you know, 2 good results and 1 or 2 of the teams having bad results, and you're right back into it. You're right back into it. So we have to keep that in mind. But it does feel like right now they're further away from being in it than the points indicate, if that makes sense. Right. Yes, like, it feels like, you know, they may only be 5 points out of a playoff spot, or 4 points, whatever it is right now, but it feels like they might as well be 10 points. Yeah. And that's kind of the concern, I think, right, for the fan base. Plus, you're stuck with this team right now. Like, there's not a lot of movable assets on the squad. You know, who are you going to trade to get other players? You know, the Bill Manning and Bob has also talked about the fact that, look, the budget has been reduced for TFC this season. So if they do go get a third DP, don't expect it to be some kind of, you know, it's not Olivier Giroud they're going to go get, right? Like, it's going to be.
Giroud?
Yeah, no Giroud. Sorry, guys. You know, or no Roberto Firmino. You know.
But
I know.
But did you not? He would be happy because he was so sad on the weekend. He was so sad. Even after he scored the beautiful goal. Yeah. Like, Bobby, come here. Don't go back to Brazil. Just come here. It'll be fine. It'll be all better.
Oh, yeah, it would be all better. But, you know, when you're asking for, you know, when you're looking at Lorenzo Insigne, who isn't, you know, necessarily lighting the world on fire, making as much as he's making, even though it says he's giving back some money, you're like, hey, just scored a goal in the Premier League. Probably put my team in the Champions League. 20 million a year, please. You know, don't think they're getting that kind of money for salary. So, you know, I'm sort of pulling Mark. I'm not answering the question either, but no, I mean, look, at the end of the day, like, does Bob need to go? It's a hard question
to answer.
Well, yeah, it is. And does Bob need to go right now? I honestly think no. And the only reason I say that is because I don't know who you replace him with. I don't really know who you go out and you're going to get, and not just come in, but come in and make this team win now. Right.
Exactly.
Because again, the team is not built to be good in 2020 or to peak in 2023. And OK, now that's the year you compete for MLS Cup. That's not the plan. The plan is that this team is competitive right now. And I don't know who you bring in to do that other than Bob Bradley, because he's built the team.
I think, and whatever a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, and including my dad, who does not like Bob Bradley, but that's okay. He never has, so he wasn't happy to begin with. To me, you stick with Bob until the end of the season, regardless of what happens. You just ride this shit out and hope two things happen. One, that your players fucking come back from injury, not too poorly destroyed. So Bradley's out for a while, which honestly is unfortunate. And again, as I've said far too many times this season, it feels very weird for me to praise Michael Bradley, but Jesus Christ, do they ever miss him? Mm-hmm. Also, Jonathan Osorio, please come back. Also, can we please have the defenders stay healthy for more than 47 minutes? That would be nice. Every time Matt Hedges does not play, I have heart palpitations and my anxiety levels go up several notches because, again, I hate that our defense relies on one player pretty much, but it does right now. So you hope that the injured players come back. You know what? Christian Gutierrez, please, oh please. You actually made the bench the other day. I was so excited. I was like vibrating with excitement at the thought that your non-COVID illness is now past and that you might actually play because we need you to play. So anyway.
Hey, I'll say Kobe Franklin has actually stepped in really well. I thought he's played really, really well. Like to the point where I'm like, do you need to play Christian Gutierrez right now? Like, I think Kobe Franklin has done a solid job. Yeah,
but when Richie Larea, well, he's probably not going back. They're probably going to find a way to keep him. But should that happen?
I don't know about Richie. I don't know.
Newcastle staying and Nottingham staying up. So
better chance, but it's also an opportunity for him to maybe be loaned out to a European club.
Maybe. I see. That's the one thing we can't hang our hats on right now, and that's going to get decided in a month, right? So, but so you want the injured players to come back and come back properly, and hope fingers crossed that everyone's truly and honestly through their stuff. In the meantime, and I don't know how injured Insigne is, but that Insigne figures out, I think for him, it's a mental thing, not an ability thing. There's clearly a bit of a disconnect there. So Bob needs to find a way to get his head right, and giving him the captain's armband is not it. And I get what he was trying to do. I understand it from a leadership perspective. You want to imbue a person on your team, maybe who is struggling. You want to give them a little boost of confidence. I believe in you. I believe in your abilities. You are the guy that's leading our team right now. And I understand it. Insigne, it's just not his personality. You should give that armband to Sean Johnson. Or to Richie Larea, which I think is hilarious because he's a hothead, but whatever. Or give it to Bernadeschi. You know what? Give it to one of those guys. Give it to Mark Anthony Kaye, whatever. But I want to see, regardless of that, some sort of, I would like to see development of the younger players. I'd like to see him consistently, pick an 11, pick a 14 out of the guys you have right now. You've signed some kids to short-term contracts with the with the weird loosey-goosey rules. You can sign them for a little bit longer. I know you can. Pick an 11, pick a 14. These are the guys you're going to rotate in and out, week in, week out, until you can start subbing in the guys coming back from injury and making them better, and have a consistent something from that. And the summer transfer window, man, I don't know what they do. They're already talking about, like Jonathan Osorio had that raise because he's unofficially a DP right now, but they have some money on the books that they can use for an additional DP, and whoever that ends up being, if they even do it. And they probably shouldn't this year, but they will because it's MLSE and it's always, we have to win every year and it's stupid. But if Bob can do something consistent with these guys, And I don't care if they play flashy football, except for they are built to play flashy football. I would just like consistent football from them and consistent like focus from these guys. If all of that can happen, I will happily let Bob keep his job until the end of the year, and I won't call for Bill Manning's head. Nor do I think Lorenzo Insigne is the problem. He is a problem because he's not playing to his abilities right now, but he is not the problem. He is not the source of all that ails Toronto FC. Those of you that think he is are wrong.
Fair. Yes, I agree that it probably is part of the problem. Sure. And I think, whether that is a more behind the scenes locker room thing or an on the pitch thing, we're not sure. And I don't want to speculate off the pitch because we just don't know. Right. And probably not our place to even know.
I refer you back to John Molinaro.
Yeah.
It's why I brought it up, though, because
it's true.
Again, there's very few journalists that trust is the right word. And it's not because John's been on the show or I've talked to John or whatever. Lots of people have talked to John. Lots of people know John. He's been on the scene for a gazillion years. He's seen it all, just like us from a fan perspective and slight insidery perspective based on the fact that, we get to talk to people sometimes, right? And that accounts for everybody that's on this show right now. But if someone is saying this is not happening and TFC does not pay John's bills, okay? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't think anyone's going to deny John Molinaro access to the team. You know what I'm saying? Like, there might be other journalists that might happen to, but can you ever see Toronto FC saying, oh, John said a mean thing about us?
Well, no, because that credit is built up over time and he's he's respected. He's a respected voice.
So he doesn't need to say nice things about the locker room to keep his access. He doesn't need to sugarcoat anything. And again, I'm not saying that there aren't likely issues. Of course there are issues. These guys have big personalities. You can see the issues playing out on the pitch sometimes, right? We know this. We know everyone doesn't love each other. That's just silly. This isn't Ted Lasso. But nor do I think it is the situation that we faced 2 seasons ago or that we faced a decade ago. Or that what year was Soulsma?
My God.
Ooh, 2012?
Yeah.
Yeah, like when was Club Escobar?
I'm pretty sure that was 2012.
Like if you've heard the stories about Soulsma and his girlfriend, like you're like, we've had things. We've had things with this team. We've had players that have done stuff. Not good things at all, that have caused rifts and problems and endless chaos. Who was the guy that got into the fight with the punch? What was his name?
Punch.
Passable?
No, not him. Later on, although probably him. Gregory Vanderweel.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like proven problem children. I don't think that's the situation we have now. We probably have clashes of personalities. Totally expect that. Again, and frustrations mounting as the team is not succeeding, right? So anyway, sorry, continue. I'm just trying to figure my way through all this.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people are. And a lot of people are trying to sort of figure out what the deal is. In the end, look, I think look, we could all be, we could be doing this podcast in August. And I'll be laughing at this time because his team's kind of clicked and figured it out and, they're on their way. Doubt that based on sort of what I'm seeing right now. But, right now, it just feels like this is not a combination of this season. I think the frustration from the fan base is not just about this season, right? No. I think this is a culmination of the
last past 2-3 years.
Exactly. It's totally a culmination of sort of just, the gaps with that. Look, 2019, I always say this, 2019 was a mirage in the desert, right? Like it was this sort of
It was one of the worst things that ever could have happened to this club.
In a way, yes, because it was great. Look, I got to go to a cup final away. Yeah. We lost. It was amazing. It was one of the best away trips I've ever had, even though we lost. But in the back of my mind, I think a lot of TFC fans' minds who have been around this club for a long time, you're like, ooh, that's going to buy this roster that probably should start, coming together a little bit.
Way too much fucking time.
Extra time. And it bought them essentially 2 extra seasons. I mean, really, COVID sort of wiped out part of it. And look, this team, again, even after COVID, this team almost won a Shield, right? It almost won a Shield again, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. 3 years ago, this team was in a position to win the league, essentially.
I know.
But it's sort of the drop off has been rapid. It has been as fast as the rise almost went, maybe even faster.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, anything you want to add to all of this before we move on?
I don't know. There's not much else I can add. Like,
yeah.
It's
just that's the general.
I think that was the perfect addition right there.
I mean, that is the general feeling.
Fuck. Trying to untangle this and make sense of it. Like, let's be fair. Like, even for us just gabbing about football, it's way above our pay grade. Like, and I mean, but this is what we do. But I don't know. This is a very particularly interesting mess because I don't know. It just seems like everything's there. It's just in one hell of a knot, one hell of a tangle. So, and
like
you guys pretty much said it.
Labyrinth.
Yeah, you guys said everything I thought of and then some. So I'll just nod in agreement. Audio. Here's some good Foley work. Can you hear it, guys? Can you hear it all? That's me nodding. Yep.
That's some vigorous nodding right there. Let me tell you.
This is.
The next sinew is going.
Exactly, man. All the nodding. Everyone's going to need chiro appointments after this.
I'm going to be hurt. I'll be out for 2 weeks. Man,
do you need to fly to England?
Yeah.
I was thinking of taking a helicopter to Montreal.
Because the neck specialists are in Montreal. So there you go.
Isn't that how it works? Mike, I need somebody to fly. You want to fly?
I'll give it a go. I'll give it a go.
I'll let you know.
You bring the chopper. I'll pick you up. Downtown.
Deal of the century.
All right, let's move on from this. Okay, so we're shifting into what's coming up. There's a few matches coming up this next week, and let's talk about one of our favorite things first. Let's get to a happy place. We're going to talk about the Voyageurs Cup, which we all love, and is a competition that is near and dear to our hearts every year. And semifinals are this week. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wednesday night, baby. Wednesday night. Woo. Both matches. It's very exciting. And as I said earlier, we've got 2 CanPL teams still in it. There is a chance we'll have an all CanPL final for the Voyageurs Cup. I
like your optimism.
I doubt that it will happen.
Yeah.
But there's a chance. So we've got Montreal hosting Hamilton on the early match. And then in the Battle of BC 3, I love this. I love this ongoing theme. It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Pacific hosting the Whitecaps, which I also love, by the way. I think it's great, and the Whitecaps have to go to Starlight. 2 kind of intriguing matchups to me. Montreal, who have more or less turned their season right the fuck around and are just being annoyingly good again. It's very irritating. after starting the season completely mired in just awfulness. But it's all coming together. Isn't that great? And then, of course, you have Hamilton, consistently at the top of the CanPL, used to cup competitions. They like cup competitions. This is one of the things that Hamilton is good at, is figuring out how to turn it on for these, brief moments and take the next step, right? So I think that particular match is going to be like, that one's got goals in it. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be a fast and furious match.
Yeah.
There's going to be no rest in this particular one. And then Pacific hosting Whitecaps has a bit of a different feel to it for me. Again, Pacific has been playing pretty well of late. Again, finding their scoring boots again. They're the top scoring team in the CanPL right now. Playing at home where they like to play, Starlight's good to them. It's a good venue for them. They've got the home fans. They just have, home ground advantage really does work in their favor for this match. And then the Whitecaps, who have been quizzical, they're just
very up and down.
They're so, I can't peg them at all this season, even the last 2 seasons, really. And like you said, yeah, very up and down. So it just depends on which Whitecaps team shows up. Does the Scottish Savior, put on a show? Like, I don't know. So yeah, but I still think there are 2 very exciting matches. Like, yes, I would rather Toronto were still in it. I always would rather Toronto were still in it. But these are 2 pretty exciting matches. Like, I will be glued to my TV on Wednesday night. You know what I mean? Like, I've got beer in the fridge. I'm probably going to make myself something snacky. Maybe I'll order pizza. Who knows? But like, that's my big plan for Wednesday night. Like, don't talk to me. I'm watching soccer for, this many hours. That's what I'm doing, because I'm really very vested in both of these semifinals.
What's it like to be fancy? Look at you. I'm ordering pizza. Ugh.
By ordering pizza, I'm probably going to go buy like discount pizza and no frills.
Look, you're not diminishing the fanciness here, okay? You're just not.
Pizza is fancy? How is pizza fancy?
Go to Baldi Alley's. I'll show you a fancy pizza. Jeez.
You've no idea.
Man, don't I wish? Are you kidding? I've got 4 excellent pizza joints within a 5-7 minute walk of my house. Like, there's some good pizza in Bloor West Village, let me tell you. But I don't think I can splash the cash on that.
No,
right now.
Fair enough. Montreal, Hamilton. Look, this is the 3rd straight year these teams are playing each other. So there'll be no intimidation factor from Forge, right? They're not going to be intimidated by Montreal at all. They know they can hang with them. Last season, look, it was a 3-0 loss and they were thoroughly beaten. And look, they ran into a Montreal that at the time was just sort of starting to get into the form that saw that Wilfred Nancy team really, show that what they could do. Little did we know that Wilfred Nancy would be gone in like less than 6 months, but
still so weird. Yeah,
very weird. Well, not weird if you understand how Montreal and Joy Saputo work. But again, this is a game where I think if you're ever going to catch Montreal, before a cup semifinal, this is a good time for Forge to catch Montreal. They just come off 2 straight losses after, essentially turning their season around by beating TFC twice in a week. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, you're probably catching Montreal at the right time if you're Forge, or at least the best time you could possibly get them. This will still be very tough for Forge. That Montreal team is showing a lot of signs of improvement under Hernan Losada. And I think that overall, the one thing about Forge will be, can they finish, right? I think they can create opportunities. It's just, will they be able to finish those opportunities when they get them? Because they will come few and far between, I think, especially going on the road. But they got to be clinical. That's their road to the final. Is if you get those chances, they got to be clinical and they got to be in the back of the net. Or it could end up being Montreal in the final again.
I agree. Jordan Hamilton will not start. I thought that was funnier than the reaction it got. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm sorry.
I was silent in agreement. I was like, you're right. I actually said it out loud.
You probably should be right. You probably should be right. It should be moving Palacios up top.
Oh yeah. Anyway, sorry. I paused for laughter. That's on me. I kind of feel like, again, everything Mike said was spot on. If they're going to get a result out of this match, those Kyle Becker blasts that 80% of the time go over the bar need to be in the 20 percentile where they go under, and et cetera, et cetera. They're capable of beating them. I think Forge is capable of beating any MLS team, probably more so than most of the CanPL in general. Not to say it's impossible, but they're just very, very well equipped. And also too, Bobby instills in them no fear against whoever the hell they're playing. They went into Azteca and played Cruz Azul as if they were playing York, except York played better and scored more goals. But my point is like they don't really get starstruck by the opposition, and that's impressive as fuck to me.
They've been there, right? So
right, but I mean, they have every right to go, fuck, I can't believe we're playing an MLS team. Never mind like the mind, never mind like the mindset. Like you can, like what Mike, you said earlier, you can have skill, but you can't teach, being a winner. You said something like that. Terrible paraphrasing, I know. But it's that, like, Hamilton has that mindset like all the time. It feels.
Serial winners.
Yeah, pretty much. And they demonstrate it all the time. It doesn't matter what the tournament is. It doesn't matter who the opposition is. It doesn't matter where the games takes place. And that to me is a far more impressive, frightening. What's the word I'm looking for? For Montreal to be concerned. A team that just plays you like they don't give a shit who you are. That's a cause for Montreal to go, okay, you know what? We're not gonna steamroll them like we did past CanPL teams. Like, and you already highlighted, the previous two versions of this where, result be damned, Hamilton looked good. Not great, but good. So yeah, this is the third version of the Schwarnier Derby, and I am my head says Montreal is going to win this, but my heart believes that Hamilton could absolutely steal this thing.
Oh, Hamilton can 100%. Forge can 100% steal this thing. The thing is that Montreal no longer takes this team lightly, right? They will not take Forge lightly. Exactly. They did the first time around when they brought all the kids, and they almost got eliminated in penalties, right? It literally came down to Tristan Henry doing something he does not do every day. Away from advancing, right?
I would never want to live through that again. I mean, no. I saw goalie penalties, Mike. That was awesome, but I never want to see that again.
No, I don't think anybody does. Nobody
like Mark's
does.
Nightmare.
Yeah, right. And and I think you saw that last year when Montreal came out with a first choice 11 against Forge, right? Mm-hmm. Like they played a first choice 11 pretty much against that team. And won 3-0, won handily and deserved to win. I think you'll see again the same sort of respect shown to Forge now. Granted, there probably will be several changes. Some are due to injury from a Montreal perspective, but I think that you're going to get a really good game against two teams who are pretty much it's hard to say in form because Hamilton just drew and Montreal just lost. But for the most part, in the last 2 weeks have been in form. And this will, to me, it could swing either way. And it really, again, just comes down to can Forge, in the moments that they will be afforded, because they will. I do solidly believe they'll create chances. Just can they be clinical, right? Mm-hmm. Can they finish when they get those chances? If they can, they're in this match. If not, you probably see Montreal going on.
Okay, so then, having said all of those things, let's get some predictions for both matches. You don't have to give me scores if you don't want to. You can if you like.
What am I, a coward?
What?
So what am I, a coward? Of course I'm giving scores.
Let's hear it then. Let's go. Montreal Hamilton. Let's hear it.
Man. I think it's gonna be God damn it. Oh God. This is the worst.
With your chest.
2-all penalties. And Hamilton now turned their three penalties losing skid to a 2 penalty winning streak.
Hey, he's going for Forge.
Of course,
I'm going 3-2 heartache loss for Hamilton. Montreal scores in added extra time.
Okay. Yeah, I will go 3-1 Montreal. It will mainly be a 2-1 game, but again, Montreal probably scores in additional time as Forge try to push up to get the equalizer.
Yeah.
All right. Aquaman and Whitecaps. Is this one? I'm just going to jump in. I'm giving this to the Whitecap. I mean, not the Whitecaps. I'm giving this to the Aquaman.
Oh, 100%.
I think this is 100% out of the 2 matches. This is the CanPL winnable match. Like, being deadly serious. I'm going 2-1 Pacific on this.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the Whitecaps are not comfortable playing at Starlight Stadium. They do not like playing at Starlight Stadium. They do not like getting on a ferry. Ferries and the Whitecaps are not friends. And it's a shame because that ferry is lovely. I agree. I will actually go 3-1 Pacific. I actually think that they can score some goals on this team. I don't think the Whitecaps will take it as seriously. Maybe not take it as seriously, and maybe that's not the right word, but I think they'll rest some players, thinking that some players can step in. And I also just think, when Manny Aparicio is in the mood, Manny Aparicio is really in the mood, he is just a tough bastard to play. Like he is just such a tough bastard to play. And he can feel like, he's one guy, but he can feel like he's everywhere. It's sort of like young Michael Bradley. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what can undo the Whitecaps, because they really need Ryan Gauld to create for them.
Well, like I said, like they need him to put on like a masterclass. They really do.
And if Pacific can shut him down and put Manny Aparicio on and say, just dog this guy, just dog him all game, then I think it gets tough for the Whitecaps.
Agreed. Marcus?
I'm gonna go with 2-0 Whitecaps, and it's not for any particular. Look, I want Pacific to win. I am always going to be pro cup set. I don't care who the oppositions are. I'm always going to want the little guy to beat the big guy. I just don't think Vancouver is going to somehow screw this up. They've got an entire final to screw up in the next round, no matter who they play.
Very true.
And you're right though. You're right. When Manny wants it, he's a terror. And Pacific absolutely have all the tools to take down Vancouver. I just don't think it's going to happen Wednesday. Oh,
wow.
I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. 100%.
I really hope you're wrong because all right. We will find out. We'll discuss this more next week after the matches. But again, tune in on Wednesday. Watch these matches because they're both going to be good.
Very much so.
All right. So next up, we're going to preview the next 2 Toronto FC matches. They play this weekend here. Actually, it's 2 home matches. Ooh, it's a homestand, everybody. Ooh, this will help, right? Surely? No, probably So they are home to DCU on Saturday, and then next Wednesday, home to the Fire, who traditionally, I will say, Toronto does pretty well against. It's one of those teams that we've kind of generally had their number. And much like Toronto, they really suck this season. So, there's hope, and they're terrible on the road. Absolutely terrible on the road. If this was away to Chicago, I would be worried because they're actually quite good at home, but they suck on the road. So fingers crossed. DC is a bit of a different story. They've somehow managed they started the season destroying TFC in the season opener notwithstanding, kind of wonky. But they've managed to, string some consistency together. All rumors of Wayne Rooney losing his job have gone completely away. So annoying.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to that.
to Waza getting sacked.
Yes. Mid-season, not even mid-season, barely a quarter of the way in. I was like, yes, gone, go. No, now suddenly they're like good or whatever. Fucking annoying. They're irritatingly consistent on the road. So, they're not great, but they don't suck. They've got some points. Yeah. Anyway. So yes. So, like I said, first up is DC on Saturday. And I feel like the history, the friction between Toronto and DC has faded over the years. It used to be like one of those fixtures that was like, oh, DC's coming, there was anger and stuff like that. And some of that was D-Row related, and some of that was just general Eastern Conference familiarity kind of thing. But I sort of feel like that's like, it's DC, whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's gone down because, generally we've had DC's kind of number over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That's no longer the case with this particular DC United team. Ever since they got Lewis O'Brien in on loan from Nottingham Forest.
What a difference!
What a difference, right? And look, let's give some respect on Matthias Klitsch, who's come in and has played really well, and Christian Benteke is finding the net.
Oh, right? Christian Benteke, what the hell?
Yeah, right. Like Christian Benteke,
This was not. I always expect good play, but he's not a young man. Early 30s, sure, but still, he's playing. Well, he's playing like he's 5-6 years younger than he is. Do you know what I mean? He's unstoppable right now.
Yeah, because they're not asking him to. They're asking him to do anything other than score goals, right? Be in the box, head stuff in, right? Like keeping it very simple. Because Klitsch has been able to cross balls in for him, and Ricky DiPietro, who killed us on opening day.
Yes.
I think he's all of 17, maybe. It has also played extremely well this season, right? So, in the fact that you've had to sit Taxi Fuentes because Taxi Fuentes is a bit of an ass. From that perspective, this is not a team for TFC to sleep on, even though, we're kind of thinking, oh, it's DC United. We've had their number in the last couple of years. This is not the same DC United.
And they've been really consistent their last few matches 100%. Too. So
100%. So from that perspective, this is again going to be another tough game that TFC will have to go into at home, and not by any stretch of the imagination, not guaranteed points.
No, definitely not. All right. Well, then who's your player to watch, or players, if you like? Who's this? Is it Click?
Yeah, Matthias Klitsch, from Leeds. That is who that is.
Yeah, sorry, you mentioned him and my brain forgot to register actually who he was.
Yeah. So they signed him from Leeds. Leeds let him go early and signed for the start of the MLS season. Yeah, look, I think Lewis O'Brien is the player you need to watch from DC United. He's really picked the team up since he's come into the squad. In the midfield, look, this is a player that TFC were rumored to be going after with their connections to Nottingham Forest. But in the end of the day, obviously, for him to play with Wayne Rooney as his manager was sort of a tipping point, and they had cap space. So from that perspective, I think he's the player to watch. Obviously, people are going to watch Christian Benteke. He's a known quantity from his time in the Premier League. So those are really the two that I'm watching, and then obviously, Click will be your third.
I've got my eye on Knaus.
Okay.
Like, I know O'Brien, like I know, the midfield, but he's been pretty consistent. He's a lot quieter. He's a quieter player, but I think his ability to sort of, be unassuming has, in partnership is can make a difference as well. Plus, I just like his last name, Knaus.
Yeah.
Knaus.
The cool thing about him is he's just one of those MLS guys, right? He's an MLS guy. He's not stealing headlines. Yeah, he's not stealing any headlines. He's not going to be the guy that is going to sell the shirts for your team. But he's a guy you need in MLS to win.
But yeah, you know what he is going to do? He's going to take the ball away from you.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing that I don't like about him. Like, I appreciate him as a player, but not as an opponent, is he's just one of those guys that will go down and take the ball away from you and not get called for the foul. Well, actually, that's not true. He will get called for the foul, but he'll still get away with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got a few yellow cards. Oh, actually, is he on? Oh, he's close to yellow.
He's one away from suspension. Yeah, he's one away from suspension. Yeah, him and Klitsch are one away from suspension. So,
well, yeah, exactly. Anyway, I just think that the midfield is the key battleground here, unfortunately, for TFC.
Well, there's
Marcus.
Jeez. I'm here for the Benteke wrecking crew.
It's fun.
It's fun. Like, I mean,
it is fun.
I still like when he I think the first we played DC like second or third game of the year? First. Sorry, yeah, okay, yeah. And it's like Benteke, like Kristin's brother? I lost all knowledge that he had come to MLS.
Yep, I know.
And then of course, he's doing really well. And retirement league jokes obvious aside, I also do like seeing a renaissance and let him. I mean, I don't want him to score at will necessarily next game, but if he happens to score, I wouldn't be too upset, just because I like a good story. So, but yeah, Benteke's the guys I got eyes on.
All right, well then, score predictions for this one, gentlemen.
I'm gonna go 1-1 draw. I think this is another draw.
Oh.
Man. I'm gonna go scoreless draw.
Probably fair.
Oh, I don't know what to do now. I don't even know what my instinct says. Actually, the draw sort of feels right. But yeah, no, I'm with Mike on this one. I think there's at least a couple goals, so I'll go 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I think there's goals in it. The question will be, of course, is just, can TFC bounce back from losing a game like that? That's a tough way to lose.
Losing at the last second to a bit of a calamitous goal. Yeah, you know what? I think they can. I still look at their performance against the energy drinks, and I still, again, was it a standout performance? No. Energy drinks very good? No. However, they put in a solid performance after having an absolute shit performance, 2 shit performances. And we're like, you know what? We're just going to be boring and consistent against another boring team. And we're going to go with that. So I'm going to take heart in that. Okay. Next up, next Wednesday, Chicago. Yay. A team who, again, like I said, is as bad as Toronto. Has, if you look at their record, they won a couple in their last few, but they'd been absolute shit before that. They haven't been very great after that. Like they're very much up and down. Anyways, they're not good. So I think, this is, and again, like I said, this is a team that historically and pretty consistently Toronto has had their number. It's a team that I think they haven't completely dominated them because TFC were so shit in the early years, but it's almost been like that team that kind of like gives them a little bit of a bounce for whatever reason. That's the team. Now, having said that, we have to talk about the Kai Kamara of it all, because
that was going to be my player to watch.
Oh yeah. Is it not everybody's, because it's Kai, and he's back and scoring goals at will almost. He hasn't played the whole season because I think he had a bit of a knock.
I'm sorry. I'm under a rock. When the fuck did he end up in Chicago?
Just before the start of the season.
Literally just before. It was like sliding in under the wire.
Yeah. Yeah, he's already scored 3 goals.
After he tore a strip off of Saputo in Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember that part. I didn't realize he had a
yeah,
place
I think they traded him like after week 1. I think after week 1 he was traded.
It was very up in the air what was going on, what was happening. And then there was rumors he'd been seen at this club, and then he'd been seen at this club. And then I follow a bunch of Chicago people who were suddenly like, that was all the chatter. So, he needed a club he hasn't been to yet. So.
The MLS tour continues.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? It was our turn. God damn it!
It's been our turn in the last 3 clubs.
I know. It's not fair. He's gonna retire before it's our turn. It's not fair.
Or he'll come here and then retire, which is worse.
Good point. So that is, it really is. That is the concern for me with that team. Like they have some good players. They are better than what their performances has been, but this team is not gelled at all. And there might be an over-reliance on the Kamara scoring magic, as it were, but if he stays hot and what's his name?
Shaqiri.
I can't. Huh?
Shaqiri,
yeah. Like remember last season? Remember that match, Mark?
Mm-hmm.
Where Shaqiri was like the immovable force?
Oh yeah. Human marble. Yes.
Yeah.
You couldn't do anything. I mean, he just rolled through you, and good luck.
So like, if that happens again, then they're in trouble, because now again, Shaqiri has not had the greatest season so far, which means he's just biding his time until they come to Toronto. But he's one of those deceptive players, right? Like he shouldn't be as talented as he is. But he is.
He's just a little ball of Swiss Albanian. Blah,
I know.
He can,
rage.
Exactly. But at the same time, like, I mean, the man has calves like bigger than my head. So that, I guess that
leg day.
Yeah, no, he does not skip leg day.
I think leg day skips him.
Exactly. He's like, bro, legs are like, hey, come on, man. Like we're good here. Okay. Look, like I think that Chicago has been, as you mentioned, not great this season. They've already fired their manager and brought in a new one. Frank Klopas, he of the Champions League hip thrust towards fourth official back in 2013. It was when he was still coaching. I feel
like Klopas is always coaching Chicago, though. Like
he is. I think this is the 3rd time he's coached
something like that.
Fire. So from that perspective, you still have a little bit of new manager bounce. The other thing to keep in mind for Chicago is they got a busy week, right? Like they got to go play the Open Cup. They got to go to Austin. They got to go to Austin and play Austin midweek, then play New England, then play us. Potentially, depends on how they rotate the squad. But we kind of get a little bit of a break from that perspective because they're going to have to play an extra game in between. But it's Kai Kamara. That's the big one, right? He killed us last year when he was at Montreal.
Yeah.
He's killed us in the past when he was at Columbus. And
oh my God, Columbus, that fucking celebration. Jesus Christ.
Exactly. And look, that's he is. There's a reason he's about to or be very close to breaking the MLS all-time goal scoring record, right? Which is crazy to think about.
Just not against us.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he's close. He could do it this season in theory, and pass Landon Donovan. But he is just impossible. Like just because he defies everything. He defies the father time. Like he still jumps like he's a 22-year-old for headers, right? And he still can move really quickly in the box to find space to score goals. So that's a night where TFC is really going to have to be organized defensively in order to handle him. Because unless he's hurt, they're going to look at it's like baseball. They're going to look at the sabermetrics and be like, that guy needs to start against TFC. Clearly.
Sabermetrics. I love you so much, Mike. That's amazing. Sabermetrics. I'm going to tell my dad you use that. He's going to just be like, that's right. My dad's my dad used to be an old baseball guy. He'll love that.
Yeah.
All right. So basically we're all watching Kamara and probably to a lesser extent, Shaqiri if he starts, which he probably will in this fixture. Score predictions.
I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going with a 2-1 Toronto FC win. I think they're going to see this as an opportunity to leapfrog a team that's above them in the table. Now, granted, you got to leapfrog from dead last to second last, but that's where I'm going. I'm going 2-1 Toronto. Why not? Some positivity.
I'm with you.
Plus, I think Chicago's back line is porous as hell. So
exactly, they fucking leak goals. Like you think Toronto's defense is bad? Oh no. Yeah. Chicago's is much worse. This is the opportunity. Oh, no, I'm with you. 2-1. Absolutely. I was thinking 3-1, but then again, who's really scoring? We're going to go 2-1. We'll be conservative.
Yeah, I'll get on this 2-1 action. Yeah, that sounds good.
Hey.
Is that a consensus, Claxon?
Awesome. Yeah.
Awooga?
I haven't had those in a while. God.
No.
Nice.
Well, okay. On that very positive note, and after, oh boy, with 3 of us, you'd think it'd be a shorter show, but no. Let's end our show finally. Please join us 2 weeks from now because Mark and I are busy as hell next week and no show. So you'll have to get your Voyageurs Cup recap and potential TFC resurgence, et cetera, the week after next. I would like to thank one of our usual panelists at Kit Nerd Mark with a K, not a Q, Mr. Mark Hinckley.
Thank you to everybody who continues to listen and support our show via Patreon. We absolutely appreciate that. Tony did a bunch of shirts. You can find them on Zazzle. You can find that link on our website. Mike, always a pleasure. Honestly. Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, heaping helping of thanks to Mr. Mike Newell at Football Saves on the Twitters. Thank you so much for joining us for this fantastic discussion. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to be with us this week.
I appreciate the invite. Always love chatting with you guys. And obviously, continue on the CPL train just for a second, because this league needs to be talked about a lot. And I love it. I love the league. I love where it could potentially be going. And especially just a lot of great stories of a lot of great players that are interesting characters. And I feel like sometimes when we talk about MLS and the Premier League and things like that, sometimes those characters get lost. So if you're looking for characters in a league, look no farther than probably your own backyard in the Canadian Premier League.
True.
Nice. Yes. Well said. As for me, you can find me on the internet. Yes, the entire internet at KZ Knowles. I have been your host, Kristin Knowles. And until 2 weeks from now, Canada, get used to it.